In today's class, we're going to be looking at indirect proportion. Indirect proportion. Remember that proportion is a relationship between two quantities such that when one quantity changes, the other changes in a specific way. And we saw in the last lesson that there are two types of proportion, which are the direct proportion and the indirect proportion. Okay, so in today's class, we're looking at indirect proportion. In indirect proportion, listen very well, as one quantity increases, it will cause the other quantity to decrease in the same amount. Or if the first quantity is decreasing, it will cause the other quantity to increase. Okay, remember, in direct proportion, when one quantity is increasing, the other will also increase. If the first quantity is decreasing, the other quantity will also decrease. But in indirect proportion, when one quantity is increasing, the other will decrease. Or when the first one is decreasing, the other one, it will cause the other one to increase. Okay, let's take for instance, if 4 people take 3 hours to complete a task. Okay, if there's a task to be done and 4 people are asked to do this task, if you increase the number of people for that same task, will it take more time or less time? Obviously, it's going to take lesser time. So the more the number of people that do a particular task, the lesser the time that is going to be taken to do that task. Okay, and the smaller the number of people that are used to do a particular task, the more the time is going to take to complete that task. So more people means less time needed, or less people mean more time needed. I hope this is very clear. This is indirect proportion. Okay, so let's quickly go to how we can solve problems on indirect proportion. And the first example we have, suppose 2 workers can complete a job in 12 hours. Suppose 2 workers can complete a job in 12 hours. How long will it take 3 workers to do the same job? Okay, now just like we established in the direct proportion, we're still going to do the same thing, just is a little difference. Okay, so follow me. Just like we did in the first part of the sentence, we're going to write 2 workers, 2 workers, 2 workers, and then put an arrow. It takes them 12 hours to complete. So 12 hours, just like we did in direct proportion. So it said, how long will it take 3 workers? So write 3 workers, 3 workers, put an arrow. Now we don't know how long for now. We want to calculate. So I'm going to just write y. Okay, so what do we do right now? Remember, for direct proportion, we did division. We took the ratio of the left hand side and the right hand side. But for indirect proportion, we're going to take the product. So this is where the difference lies. Take the product of the left hand side and right hand side. So for the first line, I'm going to say 2 workers times 12 hours will be equal to, in the second line, I'm going to say 3 workers times y. This is the difference. For direct proportion, you take ratio, you divide the left hand side by the right hand side. But for indirect proportion, you multiply the left hand side by the right hand side. So in this case, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times y is 3. So I have 24 is equal to 3y. We can still write this as 3y is equal to 24. Because the two sides are equal, we can write any one of them first. Okay, do you remember this? We are looking for y, the value of y, but we have 3y. So we're going to divide both sides by 3 because 3 is the coefficient of y. So divide both sides by 3. So on the left side we have 3y, so 3y will be divided by 3. On the right side we have 24, so 24 will be divided by 3. All right, so just like we did, 3 can divide itself 1, 3 can divide 3 1, so we have 1y, which we're going to still write as y. Okay, on the right side, 3 will divide itself 1, 3 will divide 24 6, because 3 times 6 on the right side, 3 will divide itself 1, 3 will divide 24 to give us 8, because 3 times 8 is 24. Okay, so y is equal to 8. So what does this mean? The question says, how many hours will it take 3 workers? So we can now write, it will take 3 workers 8 hours. Okay, so as simple as that, very simple. Okay, so let's take another example. Let's take one example again. In this example, we have this question. A car takes 5 hours to travel. A car takes 5 hours to travel 300 kilometers at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. A car takes 5 hours to travel 300 kilometers at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. How long will it take it to cover the same distance at 100 kilometers per hour? Okay, so look at this. You will think this question is different from the first type of question we solved, because here we're having 5 hours, 300 kilometers, 60 kilometers per hour, and then 100 kilometers per hour. But look at the question. It says, how long will it take to cover the same distance? So 300 kilometers from the first part of the question, the same distance, meaning that 300 does not change. So we're not going to touch that 300. The only values that are changing is the 5 hours, which was 60 kilometers, and then we're looking for the number of hours for 100 kilometers per hour. So it's still the same thing. On the first line, we're going to say 5 hours, put an arrow. 5 hours was at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour, and then we are looking for the number of hours for 100 kilometers per hour. So here we don't know this, put an arrow, and then 100 kilometers per hour. Okay, remember, the ones we've been solving, the letter is always at the right hand side. It doesn't matter. So far, the same type of unit is on the same side. So if you're saying hours on the left side, let all the hours be on the left side. If you're doing kilometer on the right side, let all the kilometer be on the right side. But if you want your kilometer to be on the left side, so both the first line and the second line, all the kilometers should be on the left side. So that's what's important. Let the same unit be on the same side. But it does not matter if they're on the right or they're on the left. It's going to work if we follow the procedure. So what do we do next? We're going to multiply left hand side by right hand side. The first line is 5 multiplied by 60. We put equal to. On the second line we'll have y multiplied by 100. Okay, so 5 times 60, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, is equal to 100y. Okay, remember I said left hand side is equal to right hand side, so we can still write 100y first If you still want to solve the way it is straight, then you can solve. Okay, but I love putting the letters on the left hand side. So I will write 100y first and then is equal to 300. Okay, it's still the same thing I wrote, but I just put this on the left hand side and put that on the right hand side. Okay, so we're looking for y, not 100y. In this case, we're going to divide both sides. Divide both sides by 100. You know why we're dividing by 100? Because the coefficient of y is 100. So on the left side, we have 100y all over 100 is equal to 300 all over 100. So 100 can divide 100 on the left side, leaving us with 1y, which we write as y is equal to, if 100 divides 300, we'll have 3, because 100 times 3 is 300. So y is equal to 3. What actually is our y? Okay, our y is the number of hours it is going to take. Number of hours. So we can write it will take 3 hours at 100 kilometer per hour. 100 kilometer per hour. Okay, so let's briefly look at the logic behind this. Remember, this is an indirect proportion. When one quantity is increasing, the other quantity will decrease. So here we had 5 was 60 increased to 100, which means whatever our answer is going to be supposed to be smaller than 5. Take note of that. Same thing for the first example we solved. Whatever it is, remember to check if the trend is normal. Okay, in this example we had 3 workers for 12 hours, 2 workers for 12 hours. So if we increase 2 to 3, that's 3 workers, whatever number we're supposed to get is supposed to be smaller, because it's indirect proportion. When one number increases, the other one should decrease, or when one number decreases, the other one should increase. So that's why we increase 2 workers to 3 workers. So the number of hours should decrease from 12. We don't know what it is, but whatever answer we get should be something that is smaller than 12. And you can see we got it. So if you're solving questions on indirect proportion and then the first number increased and you got an answer that also increased, then you know that something is wrong. Okay, so I'll see you in the activity.